Hello, and welcome to this episode of my fellow CRE influencers. I am 1031 Broker James. Thank you, and welcome to Best 1031 Online's YouTube channel. Today with me on the episode, I have a longtime friend of mine, Mr. Barron with Barron Commercial, CCIM instructor, digital pioneer, and co-host with his brother Timmy on the now nationally famous commercial speaking podcast and YouTube channel. My brother Bo, how are you, sir?
I'm great, man. I was just thinking that we should have hit record like 15 minutes ago and we would have had an episode on bourbon, which is what we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes. So, man, it's great to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am so excited to anytime I get to talk to you, it's always just one of my favorite things. So thanks for being with me.
You got it, man.
Yeah. So we met 2016, late fall of 2016, when I finally got to meet you in person for the Massimo Coach Academy. We had actually connected. I've been trying to remember, and it was at least 2 years, if not more, before that, because I had launched my first website in commercial real estate in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. It was my tenant rep website. People thought I was nuts. People thought I was crazy. And I just remember it was soon after that I saw stuff that you were putting online. And I remember thinking, wow, this guy is so ahead of his time. And which is why I lovingly call you the digital pioneer, because you were literally doing it right there at the very beginning as far as your blogs and some of your tips, and you were doing a lot of best practices stuff. We'll get into that. But I wanted to ask you, it's been nearly 10 years since we met. Would you have guessed 10 years ago that we would be where we're at today?
No. Right now? No, and I remember, I think, did like this is right. The first time we met is when I was late to pick you up, right?
That was the next day.
Okay.
Yeah, you picked us up at the airport. It was you, it was me, Rob Powell, David Bickle, and Jim Risha.
Yeah.
All four of us were at the airport same time.
And then the next morning I overslept.
Maybe one of those guys came in later. Yeah, you picked us up at the airport, big black Suburban, beautiful, like white glove service. Like, wow, this is awesome.
That's right.
And the next day, you were supposed to come pick us up to take us to where we were having our first day at the academy.
Yep.
And what's funny about that is that you actually told us that it had happened before.
It had happened before. Yeah. Oh, I was mortified. But you guys were very gracious to me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, it gave us something to kind of kid you about the weekend, for the weekend we were there. But I would have never guessed in a million years that either one of us would be doing YouTube channels and, recording episodes together, and just crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
So how did you get your start? Let's go to the beginning. I know a lot about you. I know, the military service. Thank you for your service, by the way.
And yours.
And thank you. But how did you get your start in CRE?
Well, my dad was in it. And, my granddaddy was a home builder, and my dad kind of transitioned it into commercial real estate development and then into brokerage. So I grew up with a commercial real estate broker as a dad, probably from like age 12 on. That was his focus. And I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in my hometown very much, and I wasn't interested in the family business, but I liked the lifestyle in the sense that not like he drove a nice car and stuff, but like he had freedom, like he could choose what he participated in and what he said no to, and he could, create his own schedule. And I really liked that. But I went to college, then I was in the Marine Corps for a while. And when I was in the Marine Corps, it became clear to me how important family was. And I became interested in the family business. So as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, I started working with my dad, and that was it. Like I never really considered doing anything else. The whole time I was in college, I didn't have a clue what to do. And it took me going to boot camp to realize how important family and what an advantage I had working in this town with our last name in this business. It's like everything was sort of aligned. And so, I just jumped right into it after I got out of the Marine Corps.
What did you get your degree in when you went to college? What was your degree?
Okay, so this is a little bit of a nuanced answer. I didn't graduate college before I enlisted in the Marine Corps, but I finished while I was in. And so I had a lot of majors. I switched a bunch, but the one I was about to get before I enlisted was organizational communication, which is the study of how communication works in systems, whether that system is a business or a nonprofit or a family or a marriage. It was just the study of communication. And so when I reapplied to finish my degree from a distance, the Murray State University, where I went, allowed me to re-enroll from a distance. I was the first distance learning student in the history of the college. So they sort of made an exception for me, and they allowed me to get my Bachelor of Independent Studies. So I basically got to create my own degree. I had to submit the classes I would take,
Wow.
and they approved it. But it was basically the organizational communication degree. Like what I submitted was the classes I would have taken had I finished my ORCOM degree. So my degree, answer to your question. It's a Bachelor of Independent Studies, but it's the same classes I would have had if I wouldn't got an organizational communication degree. So generally, I just tell people
I'm glad I asked you that question. I didn't know any of that. And It definitely now makes it much, much easier for me to understand more about who you are as the coach and instructor, and obviously being a CCIM instructor now. I know you've been doing that for a long time. So Rod, our common friend, Mr. Santo Massimo, how'd you meet Rod for the first time?
Well, I was working with my dad, and I was working through getting my CCIM designation. And so I went to San Antonio to take the comprehensive exam to earn the designation. And at the same time, we were getting recruited by Sperry Van Ness, now SVN. Mm-hmm. And so they had probably 15 to 20 companies come together. They held an event, and you had Jerry Anderson spoke, Kevin Magiacomo, the late Kevin Magiacomo spoke, and Rod spoke. So it was Jerry and Kevin and Rod. And they were recruiting us. They were trying to get us to franchise. Well, while Rod was speaking, it was time for me to go take the comp exam. So as quietly as I could in this room, a little conference room with probably 30 people in it, I get up and I start to walk out to go take the exam. And of course, you and I know Rod, but for those of you listening, if you haven't met Rod, if he's ever speaking and you need to go use the restroom or you need to leave and do something, just get prepared to be called out. And he was like, "Hey, young man, I'm not finished. Where are you going?" And I was like, "Hey, I'm in town to take the exam. It's time to take the exam. I got to go take the exam. My parents are still here. I'll be back when it's over." And so I don't remember how long they give you to take the comprehensive exam, but it's like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. Well, I take tests really fast. I either know the answer, or I don't know the answer, and I know which one it is right away. And so I'm just fast when it comes. Doesn't mean I get the highest grades, but so I finished it in an hour and 45 minutes and went back to the meeting, and they were still doing their thing. And so I sat back down, and if you hear Rod tell his story, he when he saw me walk back in, he was thinking that maybe I just quit halfway through or something. Didn't think it went well.
No way you could have finished the test that fast.
Yeah. But the way I met Rod was I walked out on him and he called me out. So like that was my first impression.
Okay. And where did it go from there?
Well, we did franchise, and so I met Rod a little bit, and then he left SVN and started the Massimo Group. So pretty early on in my career, I've just got my designation. It's 2008, 2009, and we're going through the great financial crisis. Our business is getting hit, and I hired Rod. So I wasn't his first client when he started the Massimo Group, but I was of the first clients. And he coached me for the next 2 years and is largely responsible for helping us pivot our business and really thrive out of the great financial crisis. And then after a couple of years, he asked me to become a coach. So I was one of the first 3 coaches that he brought on after he started realizing that if he's going to grow this thing, he can't be the one coaching everybody.
Right.
And so I did that. You know, I was a coach for 7 or 8 years. Some point during that time, probably around 2015, I went full time with him and ended up being his COO for about 3 years, and then left to come back to the family business and let my dad buy him out and let him ride off into the sunset. And so, yeah, I had a long run with Rod. We're still great friends. I'm actually going to get to see him in a couple of weeks. We'll both be speaking at C5 in Chicago. So, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So obviously that's what you were doing because, like I said, our coaching academy was, I want to say it was November of 2016.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And part of my responsibilities was to recruit and train new coaches. So,
right. So that
yeah.
was the first thing as I remember is you and I were already connected on LinkedIn, and out of the blue, you sent me a DM and LinkedIn and said, "Hey, we're needing coaches with the Massimo Group." And I'd never heard of it, although I had seen videos of Rod somewhere.
Yeah.
Of him sitting at his big Godfather's desk with the big bookshelf in the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I remember getting the LinkedIn. I was at Marcus Millichap. I had just started. So you want to talk about starting over. I had 15 years of commercial real estate under my belt, but I was moving from Arizona back home here to California, recruited with Marcus and Millichap to open a new office in literally my backyard, being investment sales full time. When I was in Phoenix, I was doing a lot of investment sales, but I was still doing a lot of leasing. So there was always bread and butter around, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
sure.
I came here, literally started from scratch. No database, didn't have a contact base, didn't know anybody. I knew my way around. And I remember, because I was at the end of my second year. And so things had finally starting to get off the ground. But I remember, I think there was a video you guys sent to us, and I looked at that and I was like, wow, this would be a game changer for me. I mean,
Yeah,
not
I
only
think
would
we
I
probably
develop,
invited you to a webinar or something, or maybe it was a recording of a
well,
webinar
that
or
was
something like
secondly,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
We did that. There was a live webinar. But I remember just thinking, wow, if I get to coach this content, then I get access to the content. And this content would be a game changer for me in my business, what I'm up to now, which I'm here to say that I probably wouldn't be doing what we're doing right now had it not been for really the email you sent to me or the DM you sent to me. Had I not become a Massimo coach, because my days at Marcus were numbered. I don't do well with a tight collar and a short leash. No, I need to be, and that's what's great about the SVN platform is that, I have a nice big collar and a nice long leash, and it's worked out beautifully. So was Rod coaching you social media back then?
No, it wasn't really, it wasn't framed that way. So I'm trying to remember, when he was coaching me, there was the ramp up process, which I think is still used.
Mm-hmm.
And then, man, it was just like having Rod in your foxhole. And what I really liked about his coaching is, he's a New Yorker and I'm a Kentuckian. So like just naturally, culturally, he's going to come off as having a little bit more of an edge. And, I was coming out of the Marine Corps. Like I needed somebody that was going to stick a boot up my rear end if I needed it. And that's who Rod can be, especially as a coach. So it was very effective. It was just what I needed kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But when I became a coach, I think when he started to have to replicate what he would do naturally and teach other coaches how to do it, he had to systematize it more. And right. So, like now when you're coached by the Massimo Group, there's a lot of prospecting stuff. There's a lot of presence stuff. He's got the presence pyramid, some of that stuff. It wasn't quite as formed when he was my coach, though we did talk about that stuff. But I got into social media just because I saw.
I was just going to say he was probably, especially back then, coaching whatever it was, 10, 12 guys. He was customizing. It's like, okay, diving in. What is it about your business that you need that boot up your fanny for? And that's what was the focus.
Yeah. But I got into social media just because I was a younger guy in an industry that lagged when it came to technology. I should say lags when it comes to technology. And I was looking for a competitive advantage. And I figured if I could become known online, that would make everything else in my business easier. And it turned out that was the case. Though I'll tell you, man, I do not like social media. I don't like doing it. And maybe that's because I'm not the youngest guy in the room anymore, not even close. But, right before we jumped on, I was scheduling some LinkedIn posts. Like, I see the importance of it. I do it. But, man, the days of me having my own website where I was blogging a couple times a week and doing all this other stuff, that stuff paid off for sure. But I'm
Clearly.
so glad I'm not blogging anymore. And now with our podcast, Commercially Speaking, like, I've built the team that does all the work. So I sit down, I schedule guests, I do the episodes, and then somebody else does everything else about it. And so, if you see clips of our show online and stuff, like, I didn't touch that at all. And if I had to do it, it wouldn't get done. So it's important to have the who's on the team that can operate in their giftedness and do the stuff that I don't want to do, or it just wouldn't work.
Right. Well, and you make a couple of great points, because as I've been sharing with people on this episode in this series, is that, with the guys that I still coach 9 years later, I'm still coaching with Rod, and less than a third of them are active online. And I know a lot of it is people are like, yeah, because it is a huge undertaking. I mean, when you look at the other people that are, like Aviva, the warehouse lady in Denver, I mean, she's got 1 million followers on TikTok. You've got other YouTube subscribers, people that we both know, like Joe Killinger. He's got 45,000 subscribers on YouTube. These guys, and look at Bob, BK Knackle. I mean, what he's done in like 3 years. I had him on the show earlier this week. And yeah, you got to have a team. You got to have somebody doing that stuff. The content's got to come from up here. But after that, if you don't have a team, then it's crazy. I mean, I'm learning that myself now. Launching my YouTube channel in October. And I've got plenty of content ideas. I know once the camera's rolling, I'm good. But doing the editing, creating the reels, doing the clips, posting it all, writing all the captions, scheduling all that.
Yeah, I don't even know what the difference between a clip and a reel is. Like, it's,
You're cute. You're a cute fella. Yeah, it's basically the difference is length. Clips are shorter.
I didn't want you to explain it to me. I just want to point out that, like, I'm not this social media expert. I probably was at the front end of my career because I kind of adopted it earlier on. But like now, it's like I recognize the importance of having a skilled person in between me and a lot of the technology that we end up using. So it's important, and we're trying to use it better, but it's not me doing it,
Yeah.
And I don't want to know the difference between a clip and a reel and a short and all these other things. Like, I just don't care. And I just, somebody else can figure that out for me.
Right. You understand the power of being out there where people can find you, and that's all you need to worry about.
Well, that's the key. If people know who you are and they understand what you're good at, if you're able to demonstrate your expertise in a way that, like, gives value to people, then, like, man, everything else about the business becomes much easier. Prospecting's easier, negotiating's easier, just building relationships. Like, if somebody listens to our podcast, and it's so much easier for me to build a relationship with them because they already feel like they know me. And in a lot of ways they do. So everything about the business gets easier if you're well known. And if you're somebody who has a high level of ability when it comes to communicating, then, like, doing what you're doing here with the YouTube channel or doing a podcast is a great move. It's been really, really effective for us.
Yeah. So a couple things. First and foremost is that because you said that when you're glad that you did all that because it paid off, do you have a story where long before this, say, 5 or more years ago, where you were able to win a transaction, win an assignment, complete a transaction purely for the fact that you were visible?
Yeah, I mean, the way you framed it, like, purely because I was visible, maybe not the case, but, like, here's how it plays out oftentimes is, like, I live in this place in Western Kentucky, which is a little bit of a void when it comes to the big national companies. We don't have any of the big national companies within 2 hours of where I live. And so if there's an opportunity down here, you know, the CBREs, the JLLs, the Colliers, the M&Ms, the Cushwakes, like all of them, they don't want to come here. And I get those calls more often than not. And I always ask those guys, because a lot of times I'm wondering, like, is it because I have the CCIM designation? And a lot of times that's the case. They look me up on CCIM. I had a call with a guy a couple of weeks ago. We've got a local Starbucks that might be sold. Owner's out of California. He calls me and I asked him why. He's like, well, I watch your podcast, you know? So like, it's that kind of thing that it really pays off. On the CCIM instructor side, like I have to turn down assignments because the chapters who hire you to teach, like they're fans of the show and they see me teach my brother. So it's like they get a preview of what I might be like in the classroom. And that's really, really helped. So it's definitely paid off, but yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of the show, commercially speaking, that I had the opportunity to be on a few months ago, whose idea was that?
It was a nice group effort. I wanted to do a podcast for years. And what held me back was I didn't know how to like make it exist. Like the technical part, I didn't know. And I didn't necessarily want to jump in and figure it out. And then I didn't exactly know what the format of the show should be. Like I didn't want to just be a talking head. And I didn't want it to just be an interview show where I'm interviewing somebody else, because when it really comes down to like my sweet spot is when I'm in the role of a teacher. I didn't know if I'd be great at interviewing people so I was talking to Timmy, my younger brother, who's an actor and a comedian. You know, Timmy. I was talking to him and I was interviewing some companies that would do the work for me, create it. They would produce it. They would edit it. They would get it out there. They would create the shorts and the clips and all that stuff. And I asked Timmy to sit in on a couple calls. And after those calls, he calls me up and he's like, do not hire anybody. It's like, hire me. I will do this stuff for you. And I was like, man, as soon as we do this, you're going to get picked up on some, multi-season show on NBC or something. And I'm going to lose my guy, He's like, no, like just hire me. But we still didn't have like the format figured out. And so this was Timmy's idea. He called me up. He's like, let me co-host this with you. I'll sit in for the audience and you teach me. And I was like, as soon as he said that, I was like, that's brilliant. That is the thing. Like, that's the thing that I have that nobody else has. I have a Timmy, Yeah. So he's this actor, he's this comedian, he's skilled at producing everything and editing everything. And so if you look at the quality of our show, it's come a long way. But even when we started, I was blown away at like, we had video from day one because he knew how to do that. And he was telling me what to do with the lighting and the settings and stuff. Cause we started the show. He was in Chicago. I was here. Then he moved back and now we've got a studio and stuff, but he does all that stuff. So like the idea of the show was mine, but the way the show looks was pretty much all Timmy.
Yeah. What a collaboration. I mean, it's awesome. Plus I'm sure now, 2.5 years in, you guys have probably bonded at levels you wouldn't have thought possible.
Oh yeah. And we were tight before this. Like there's 6 of us kids. I'm number 1, he's number 4. And all our siblings, I've got good relationships with all of them, but I've never got to work with any of them before. And so, yeah, Timmy and I are definitely tighter than we were before this. And it's been just it's a ton of fun. And it's a privilege to get to work with your little brother, somebody you love and who's so talented,
Right. So again, I was more than excited to get on the show with you guys. And I'd been in the room with Timmy, but I'd not met him. I missed the opportunity to meet him when you guys were at MosmoCon. But I hope to be in the room with the 3 of you sometime. But yeah, instantly you can see the chemistry, you can see the love between the 2 of you. And it was just so seamless. Everything was just so seamless. In fact, you look at when I watch the show now, you would swear that you guys do hours of rehearsal, and I don't know. I'm guessing it's probably more off the cuff because obviously Timmy's probably been very well trained in improv and those kind of things. So you're right. His talent and ability to keep the show on an entertaining level But then you and your sense of humor, and we poked a lot of fun at Timmy, and I know you like doing that, but that's
Oh
part of
yeah.
the premise, is the whole quiz at the end. James, you get to ask Timmy a quick quiz at the end to see how well, and he did particularly well on our show.
Yeah, he always surprises me with how well he actually retains what we teach him in an episode. But we the nice thing about having a co-host who you've known your entire life
Yeah,
is that you really don't need the rehearsal time. And so what we've done, particularly over the last 10 to 15 episodes, we've brought on an editor. And so we've got a team of 3 now, plus me, that does the show. And so we've had to get a little bit tighter when it comes to preparation so that somebody else can edit it well. So, the intros that Timmy is coming up with these days blow my mind. I mean, they're unbelievable how he introduces people. So when I walk in there, he hands me a script for the intro, and we basically just do the intro. And then, I think the secret sauce of our podcast is we don't have questions. We don't have a plan. We just have a conversation with really interesting people, and it goes where it goes. And yeah, it's been a blast. It's been so much fun, and I've learned so much, especially from our guests.
All those organics in the same pot is really what has, I think, spoke largely to your success for sure. That coupled with obviously you're a walking encyclopedia of commercial real estate. And
well, thanks.
I still like, there's still Bo videos on the platform, on the Massimo platform.
Oh yeah.
So I'll watch them just because I miss Bo so much. Let me watch this video so I can give me a little taste of Bo Barron.
Love it.
All right. So we can't get out of here without talking about 1031 exchanges. So you have a 1031 story you like to?
Yeah. One of my first big deals was early on in my career, probably year 2 or 3. It was going to be a $3 million deal in Owensboro, Kentucky. It's my first deal of that size. And just to give some context, average deal for our brokerage today is probably still under $1 million. Like small town, most of it's owner user stuff, But anyway, this is one of my first.
You can buy real estate for less than $100 a foot.
Well, that's maybe industrial, maybe. But so we're working on this deal, and the seller is starting to realize that he's, we're already under contract. I'm representing the seller. My dad is representing the buyer, which was a lot of fun. And he wouldn't tell me who it was because they were trying to remain anonymous as long as possible. And it was a bank. And so I'm meeting with my guy. We're under contract. It's gone hard. Like the deal's going to happen. And he's starting to realize, and I'm going to have to pay some taxes, right? And I was like, oh yeah. So I'd learned a little bit about 1031. So I was able to take him through. I was like, you're going to need to confirm this with your CPA, but this is generally how cost recovery and capital gains is calculated. And we kind of on the back of a napkin articulated what his tax impact was going to be. And he was not happy, right? Like he did not realize what was going on. And he was a financial planner. I was like, dude, shouldn't you know some of this? But anyway, so then I got to introduce the idea of a 1031. I was like, there's a way for you to defer this. He's like, really? And so I explained it to him based on what I knew at the time. And he started to get real excited. He was like, well, what else could I buy? And I was like, well, it's not on the market, but these guys down the street, it's an awesome building. Tell them all about it. And what was my big mistake, James? Based on what I just told you, what was my big mistake?
You told them where the building was.
That's right. And he went and did that deal without me.
Yeah.
Without me. Yeah. And so I learned a lot. One, I learned the power for a broker of a 1031 exchange. If I would have been smarter and protected myself, I could have gotten another deal out of it. That would have been the same size as the deal I just did. So I would have turned my biggest deal ever into my 2 biggest deals ever. And I learned the importance of protecting yourself. I've never made that mistake again because that sucker was that was a 6-figure mistake,
Yeah, I was going to say that commission had to be in the 6 figures.
So yeah, that was the first one. And then like some of the 1031s that we've done over time have been a little bit interesting. You can get kind of creative. The rules are the rules. However, I sold an apartment building one time. My dad sold a bunch of duplexes at one time, and we both liked the same building. So we created a TIC, and we both 1031'd into the same building. Well, I didn't know you could do that. We kind of figured that out. And then another time we sold something. I forget what we sold, but we wanted to expand on our self-storage facility at the time. And my dad and mom owned the land personally that we wanted to build on with the 1031 money. Well, we got a problem. That's not an arm's length transaction kind of thing. And so we got the CPAs and stuff involved, and we're advised that if we did a long-term land lease between my parents and the business, the self-storage business, that it would check that box of arm's length transaction. So it allowed us to get around that. They didn't actually sell the land, just did a long-term land lease. And then we still had to spend the money within the 6 months, but we were able to get that done. So, man, you think a 1031 sometimes is like this incredibly rigid set of rules and timelines, and they are. Like, you can't screw that stuff up. But there's still ways to be creative in the execution of it, and that's why guys like you are important, because I can't hold all that information in my head all the time.
It's
but
a lot.
You can.
Yes.
Yeah.
So a couple of great stories. I just learned recently, it's probably been 2-3 years ago, that, and this, I'm sharing this with you because this might be something that would definitely be something that would come in your market versus mine. And that is that you have somebody that owns a huge piece of land. I'm talking, 20, 30, 50 acres or more. And somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to put a solar farm on your property. Or now they're building data centers, right? We don't want to buy your property. We just want to put something on it and use it. So I helped a client do an exchange. It was actually through the attorney. The attorneys actually hired me. And what we did is they created an easement. And from the money from the easement, the landowner was able to exchange into something else. So there's all kinds of ways that you can use. Like you said, you explained it perfectly, that the rules are what the rules are. But if you take the time to plan it and look at how can we strategically use the vehicle itself to make our situation work for us, with the commonality of anything is deferring those capital gains taxes. Yeah, I've been in that conversation where, in fact, a couple of years ago, this is the most vivid memory just because I'll never forget the first conversation on the phone with the guy. It was actually, the first guy called me was a CPA. And the CPA had referred me other clients before. His name is Scott, and he said, James, hey, I'm going to refer you to David. David is selling a piece of property he's owned for more than 20 years. He was going to improve on it, and he's decided not to. So he's going to sell it. And I just got off the phone with him, and he's hot. Oh, yeah? How big is this tax bill? He's like, it's going to be north of $350,000. And he lost his mind with me because he had no idea that that's how much it was going to be. And he is freaking out. And I'm like, okay. And I said, anything else I know? He's like, oh, yeah, by the way, they're closing escrow in 6 days. Woo! Okay, we need to talk right now because I need to, first thing first is I got to get him a QI, right? And it's amazing how many times I hear of failed. It's actually not a failed exchange because the exchange never got off the ground.
That's right.
At least 2-3 times a quarter, almost on average once a month, I hear about somebody who had every intention to do an exchange, but nobody told them that you have to sign with the QI first. Or before you close, not just first, but before you close escrow.
And then they took the money and it was over.
Yeah. Well, and just last week, it happened again. Somebody said, well, my money's in escrow. And I was like, it doesn't matter. That's still constructive receipt. And I'm getting ready to do an episode for the channel on constructive receipt because people think that, I can't take possession of the money. That's true. But The IRS looks as constructive receipt means that you have control of it. Even though it's not in your bank, you have control of it. And so, there was no QI in place, so it's went to the escrow company. It's still at the escrow company, but you closed. So now you have constructive receipt. And so
now you have.
My CPA thinks we can unwind this. No, you can't. No,
Let's be clear. You can try.
Well, that's a whole nother.
You just have to hope they never take a look at it.
Because you won't get caught unless you get audited, right? And so, I have conversations with residential agents talking about how people, sell their investment property that's a single family home, and then they go and exchange into a beach house and move into it. I'm like, you can do that, but you got to wait a couple of years before you do it. You can't do it instantaneously. And they're like, well, they did it. And I was like, yeah, well.
And it'll work as long as the IRS never takes a look at it.
Right. And that's part of the scary thing about it is because even the QIs, you and I could open a qualified intermediary firm tomorrow. There is a certification, but it's not regulated by the federal government or anything. So, which has also created some scary stories about what has happened. You have to really be careful because, people go and open a QI firm, collect, there's a significant amount of money. Like all of a sudden they got $1.5 million, and then next thing you know, tomorrow they're gone.
Yep. Well, that's the dirty little secret about the IRS in general is you can do whatever you want.
Just don't.
Anytime you want when it comes to taxes, and it will work unless they take a look at you. And then you get crushed, hammered, and maybe go to jail. So like the stakes are high. Don't anybody listen to this and think that we're suggesting that you test the IRS. Don't do that. Do things the right way.
Well, especially, and I'm sure there's other states, but here in California, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. So when you talk about the FTB, which is the Franchise Tax Board, which operates the California tax platform, I guess, that's who you pay your state income tax to and all that. The FTB cannot stand 1031 exchanges. We're one of the only states that when you do perform an exchange, that every year you file your taxes, you have to file a special form because the FTB wants a paper trail. They want to know where that property is and what the status of that property is, et cetera. So, it's a lot out there. And as you know from shared with you on the show that, more than 60% of exchanges fail every year. And it didn't take me long to realize why. And it's, the education is great. If you go, the QI sites are awesome. First American, IPX 1031, they're all awesome. But the information on those sites is limited. It's to the rules, legalities, and all that. It doesn't dive into strategy. And if you have this, you can do this. They won't give you that kind of advice. You call them up and say, well, what can I exchange into? They'll say, well, you can exchange into like-kind property. They're not going to say, well, you can, do this and buy two. And, you want to buy a property with the parents and your parents are exchanging and buy a property and create a tick. They're not going to tell you any of that. They're not. So you get to say my tagline. I get to record Bo Barron saying my tagline in the way that only Bo Barron can.
Oh, yeah, baby.
So the tagline is because the best 1031 is a successful 1031, right? So when you're ready.
Because the best 1031 is the successful 10. Let me try it again. Here, I'll do it again. Okay. Because the best 1031 is a successful 1031.
That's it. Mr. Barron, my brother Bo, thank you so much for being on the show. This was great.
Oh, thanks for having me on here, man. It was always good.
It's going to be more gold. I told you I got 12 reels from when I did the show with you and Timmy.
Yeah. I've seen them.
We'll have a lot more from this one. So once again,